And we're live. Finally, we're live. Sorry for a little bit of a wait there. We are live with episode number 2 of the Stars of Destiny podcast. It's a Suikoden podcast. As we were excited to announce this and let everybody know, whoever is a fan of Suikoden, and people were loving the first episode, so we're back doing another one. So I'm your host, Marco Flores from Nerd in the Bay, and with me, as always, is Luca Blight. Luca, how you doing today?
I'm doing good. How about you?
I'm doing all right, just trying to get the kinks out of, trying to tell everybody that we're live, but we finally got that pretty much settled. So yeah, so today we're going to be talking about pretty much a main topic, and then trying to see who is chiming in with that topic, or just chiming in general regarding the podcast. So the topic for today is something that's been kind of like a heated discussion over on the Suikoden Club on Facebook, on the group's pages. It's the Kingdom of Highland versus the Kingdom of Holy Harmonia. So, I think somebody was posting like, who, would you think that the Kingdom of Highland would win over Harmonia? And then, people were kind of going back and forth. Some people were leaning towards Highland has a possible chance. A lot of others were like, really, they really don't have a chance. But we're going to delve into that discussion today. And if you guys are watching with us right now, welcome to the podcast. If you're listening to us over on Anchor, welcome as well as you're listening to the podcast. The podcast audio version is in transition of like getting to all the other platforms. So, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, you name it. Once that gets all, approved, then we'll let you know, like, just to go ahead and listen to your, to this podcast on your favorite podcast app. So there's that. So let's go ahead and get into it. So Luca, you wanted to delve into this topic because it was pretty much a hot button topic. So let's start it off. What do you think when it comes to Highland versus Harmonia? Let's give it like a little bit of a lesson there, just to set up the stage.
Okay, so what's important to know is Harmonia has existed for a really long time. It's literally the oldest country in the Suikoden world. Now, it actually started before the solar calendar. What the solar calendar is Hikusak's calendar. Basically,
right.
When he took power, he restarted everything, right? So he is the one that invented this calendar. Before the Kingdom of Harmonia was there was actually a kingdom called Aronia. And this kingdom ruled over a vast majority part of the land. If you look at your screen there, where it says Holy Kingdom of Harmonia there, they owned all of that and the Nameless lands. Now,
wow, okay.
Yeah, so Harmonia, Hikusak actually proved by coming up here that he could actually defeat these guys using not just like his true rune, but also his military tactics. So there's one big win right there that people have to understand. Hikusak was named like the hero or the one true hero, so a lot of people actually don't see him as evil in comparison to where we've heard recently that people think he's evil. So there's a little, it's a little different discussion when it comes to Hikusak himself.
So when you're thinking about Hikusak, it's kind of like you live long enough as a hero to become a villain as times pass?
It could be that, or it could be just he's a hero to his own people, and then everyone else is scared of him. It could be either one. Who knows? We don't really know enough about him.
Maybe a Doctor Doom for Latveria sort of thing?
It could be. It could be very much that. But also, this was called the Heroes' War when he took on Aronia, because they considered Aronia as a very villainous country. Even their own people did, so that's why they love Hikusak so much for taking this kingdom and creating it into something that they liked much more. So as soon as he won, he became like the high priest. Now, he has what's called a theocratic, or whatever you call it, government, the religious government.
Right. Okay.
So basically, like priests basically run the country. By the year 20, only 20 years, he had actually expanded all the way down and covered half of Dun'an. So he owned all of Highland, and then he owned all of the area that you see on the very far right there, where Cairo town is and stuff like that. And he actually had over half of the Scarlet Moon Empire.
Wow.
Yeah, they cut straight through. Funny fact is actually Grangminster Castle was actually created by the Harmonians. It was actually called Rupanda. And then that castle ended up being called Grangminster once the Scarlet Moon Empire was founded.
Right. Okay. Oh, that's a pretty substantial part of land. And would you say they were getting the Tinto Republic too, or they kind of bypassed them and just went straight for Torin?
Um, sorry, what was that about Tinto? Is that what you said?
So like when you were saying that Harmonia was kind of going downward to like conquering the lands, would you say that they were coming down towards the Tinto Republic too, or just they bypassed Tinto and then went
They
straight for?
bypassed them for sure.
Okay,
They're definitely rune driven.
okay,
So like I said, by the year 20, they had conquered over half of Dunnan and Toran. But then in year 70, they actually went after the Gate Rune clan, which is Windy and Legnat's
right,
group of
right,
people, and they slaughtered them.
right.
So that proves right there that the Harmonian army is actually very, very powerful if they can take on rune users like Windy and Legnat and force them to run.
Okay,
By 230, I mean, we had a rebellion in Dunnan, which caused there was a rebellion in Dunnan, and Marceau Blight, who is actually Luca Blight's ancestor, defeated this rebellion and was rewarded with the Kingdom of Highland. And that is
okay.
how it got formed in the first place.
Okay. So that's okay. That's how it got formed. Interesting. Interesting. I get that's a lot. That's a lot of like backstory that you really kind of don't hear unless you kind
You
of
have to
like
go
delve
looking
in.
for it.
You have to go dig into it. And is some of that part of those Suikoden games with Nash, or a lot of it was just digging?
Yeah, for sure. A
Okay.
lot of it has to
Backstory.
do with Nash, and then, but also all the books that you collect throughout all the Suikoden games,
Oh,
all of
okay.
them have little tidbits of information that you find throughout there. But yeah, a
Mhm.
lot of it you'll find out through Nash, and find out that you have to go through a lot of these web pages to find.
Okay. Oh, interesting. Okay. So 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 when so when this topic was brought up, let's see, a lot of that was a lot of other people were like, yeah, not so much when it comes to Harmonia versus Highland, or Highland having a chance against Harmonia. So I mean, so where can we start when it comes to this battle? Like from the soldiers to the statistics to the mass number of army. Like, what do you think we should start at when it comes to this battle, Luca?
Well, what I wanted to point out real quick there is on the map you can see up where it says like L'Oreal and stuff like that. Highland's actually a very small country. So if we
Mm-hmm.
were to do just Highland against Harmonia, it would be extremely one-sided because you don't have as
Okay.
much resources. There's too big of an army. But where
Right.
we're starting off from is had the actual battle where we ambushed Luca Blight down by Two River there. Sorry,
Two River. Right.
like around that area. We're
Yeah.
looking down there. That's where we ambush Luca Blight near the
Yeah.
castle, our main castle, south window. Um, had he broken through that and defeated our army,
Hmm.
that is where we're looking at like where this would progress. Because if Luca Blight had won, it's very much stated by Shu, if this fails, if this gamble fails, that it's over.
Right. Right.
So that's where we would start from. Is Luca wins, Luca defeats them, and the Dunnan Republic is now completely under Highland's control. If the audience wants to take a look at that map, it says Dunnan Republic.
Hmm.
That entire land would end up being under control of Highland,
Highland. Right.
which would actually make Harmonia nervous because
Right.
that would place them as the third biggest country in the entire northern continent,
Hmm.
just behind the Tauran Republic and Harmonia itself.
Right. Okay. Okay. So at this point, as Luca is explaining, we're playing out the events of Suikoden 2, like Joey and Rio finding the rune of beginning runes, and then everything else that falls into place from there. And then we're doing the ambush. The ambush failed the rebel army. Luca has won. Highland has taken over. So now this is where we're starting off. So just for the people that are out there, like, okay, where are we actually going from here? But all right, go ahead and continue, Luca.
So from there, Luca would definitely want to take on the Tauran Republic because if he could take that, he would then be able to rival Harmonia. But the
Right.
thing is, Harmonia is not stupid. Sasarai was sent there for a purpose, and that purpose wasn't to back up Highland like people think. He's there to keep tabs on the Beast Rune.
Right.
So if they get control of the entire Dunnan Republic, there's no way that Harmonia would allow Highland to advance southwards at the Tauran Republic like that, even though they're
Right.
not allies.
Would
They wouldn't want them to get that big.
they would intervene at some point.
Yeah, they would either politically try to stop them, or they would military try to stop them. Now, Luke is not going to allow politics to stop his goals.
Right.
So he would definitely end up becoming an enemy of Harmonia, and that's where this war would pick up.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Not as just Highland, but Highland and the Dunnan Republic put together.
Yeah. Yeah. And you can also make the argument that Harmonia would try to do some sort of like united front with Tauren if that were the case, if Luca was trying to go down southward trying to conquer Tauren.
I could definitely see that. I could definitely see Tauren looking for help because they would not be able to stop Luca at that point. Luca's military power would be too heavy, and Tauren took some really big beating when it comes to their military because of the war they went through 3 years prior to that. So they wouldn't be on the terms that the Scarlet Moon Empire was. Scarlet Moon was able to stand on their own and hold off heavy attacks from any country because of how strong they were. But after that internal war, they're not quite that strong. That's why Tauren wasn't able to just advance into Highland and just side with the Dunnan Republic. It was because they didn't militarily have the ability. They could only send 5,000 soldiers with Kasumi or Valor, whoever you picked.
Right.
So they would definitely be looking for an ally. Now, whether or not Harmonia would use them or not is beyond me. But we do know that Harmonia's army itself is very confident. I mean, when they invaded in Suikoden 3, it was like a hot knife through butter. Both Zexen and Grassland, all the Grassland tribes, tried to stand up and fight them, and it was horribly one-sided both times that they fought. Now, you see right there on the map where it says Mount Sene, Calara, Lebuc, all that used to be Grassland territory, but then in the first war they ever had, Grassland was conquered in the blink of an eye. Like, it was
like nothing.
Harmonia's military is so big and so powerful that Grassland stood no chance, but it was actually the Firebringer that ended up turning the tides on that. Because, a lot of people don't realize this, but the first Flame Champion lost the first time he fought Harmonia, and he was actually in prison for 4 years.
Oh wow! Okay,
yeah,
did not hear that.
He was defeated, and then he actually sprung from prison, and on the way out of the Crystal Valley, he stole the True Fire Rune, as what they say. But the True Fire Rune actually chose him. They chose him to be his bearer, and then he linked up with 2 other True Rune users, the True Water Rune user,
True Water and True Thunder,
who was Wyatt at the time, and then True Lightning, who was Jado.
Yeah.
Also joined. So then they were able to rally the troops, and Zexen at the time was basically just another version of Grassland. They've only had a few decades of independency.
Right.
So they all gathered together and they fought against Harmonia, and they still lost.
Right, because True Fire, True Flame, like, went nuts.
Yeah, it went out of. They say it went out of control. That the Flame Champion lost control of his rune, and it blew up both sides. But before that happened, Grassland was getting crushed again. They gathered all this troops back. They were ready to fight again, and then they got stomped again. And it wasn't until that rune exploded and killed the army that Harmonia said, "Whoa, hold on a second. We're not going to continue to take losses here like this because you basically just dropped a nuke."
Right.
So they didn't know. Harmonia didn't know if this rune was used like that on purpose or not. So they're like, let's call a truce. And then during that truce, the Zexen Confederacy split off and made its own little country. Grassland was its country again, but it lost Lebuc, Calara, and like Mount Sene.
Right. Okay. Then that's where you see the little bit of the cutoff right there. With Lebuc and Mount Sene. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. So if you'd never delve into the history of Suikoden, or it's like stuff that we could have delved into, they filled out a lot of the backstory. So it's really interesting in that sense. But yeah, like looking at the map and looking how big Harmonia is, and looking at how much a little bit smaller Dunnan and Tauren are, is like, man, I see these guys and okay, I'm looking up at matchups, and I mean, Harmonia is huge. Dunnan is it's pretty sizable. Tauren, okay, you have the waters and a little bit of a defense there, but a lot a lot of everything else that's not filled out. Anybody could have taken that, or who knows like what the story would have panned out. But
Yeah, like
yeah.
Harmonia has way more wins than losses. It does have some notable losses. I'll definitely say that,
Okay.
but it has way more wins than it does losses. They actually took out. Do you remember Queen from Suikoden 3?
Yeah.
Her homeland, Sonadia, I think it's pronounced. It was actually conquered in the year 440. It was a 20-year war. They fought hard, but eventually, like it was just Harmonia was too much.
Yeah,
They're
they
not
gave out.
just they gave out and they were gone, and that's why she's a second-class citizen.
Okay, that's right. That's because now we're delving into Harmonia's like citizen classes and levels.
Mm-hmm. Well, a lot of other people just kind of skip over is the Soffer clan in Suikoden 3 was wiped out. They're gone.
Oh, huh.
A lot of people
Okay.
don't realize this. To the south there, the Soffer clan, they're dead.
Wow.
When everyone got invaded, all we were focusing on was retreating away from the Duck Village, the Krista Village, and then going into Brass Castle.
Hmm.
But the southern lands there, they got invaded too, and they're wiped out. And it was like that. It was a blink of an eye. It was gone. That's how strong the Harmonian army is, and that's what we really got to take into account too.
Yeah.
Is they're not just some big army. They're tactically well. They're much like the Roman Empire. They
Yeah.
have
Right.
tactics to back up their numbers.
Right. And with like I mean, like they didn't delve into like a lot of unique characters, but I'm pretty sure with that big of an army, you would have like maybe who knows, maybe they had their own 108 in that on the other side if the story was able to pan out more. But yeah, seeing that big of the land and how big of the army is and how easily a lot of the fights were when it comes to Harmonia, you can definitely connect some dots there.
I'd imagine so that they had his own 108 because he does have the Circle Rune and he
Right.
did win his own Liberation War.
Right.
Now, if the viewers would like to look at the map here, you have the Camaro Free Knights up there, the top left. You have Grassland, Zexen, and the Tinto Republic. All of
Right.
them combined still lost to Harmonia very heavily during Suikoden 3. So you take all of that land together, all of those troops, and they all lost.
Wow.
So that's something that we really have to take into effect here. A lot of people just think about how powerful was Luca Blight and how powerful is that Beast Rune. They're strong. They are. They're absolutely very, very powerful and a big threat. But we got to really, really look at this objectively when we talk about this subject.
Yeah. Okay. So let's go ahead and delve into it. Let's kind of do the tail of the tape. Like who's on what side, what runes that they had, and like if you have the numbers of the number of like the army numbers, let's delve into that. So let's go ahead and start off with the Kingdom of Highland. Let me go ahead and click out of that to zoom in there. Let's start with the Kingdom of Highland. Let's start off with their roster, and let's go ahead and list them off.
All right, so on Highland's side, when it comes to generals, you would obviously have Luca Blight right there at the helm, and we all know how powerful Luca Blight is. Luca is unbelievably powerful. I mean, there was a point in time where we surrounded him with 25,000 troops, ambushed him, and he still got away.
Right.
Like, he's very powerful. Then we have Seed, he actually started as a peasant, and he rose up through the army, through the ranks because of his amazing skill. Seed is a very, very talented general, and Kulgan is actually very brilliant. So we have two really good generals there. Now we have Han Cunningham, who is a legend. Now this guy's a little old, but he's still a legend. I mean, this guy, when Highland first invaded the Dunnan Republic, or the city-state at the time, Han was able to conquer Muse, Matilda, and Greenhill. Before Jinkaku was able to gather up the soldiers and retake these areas through guerrilla tactics. But Han Cunningham is very, very talented.
Yeah.
Now we have Raud, who, I mean, you just kind of naming him. He's just basically a foot soldier. He's a loser.
Yeah.
Right.
But he has a portrait, and that's pretty much it.
Yeah. Now we have Uber. Now this guy's a big question mark. He's very powerful. And he's not human. He's arguably up there with Luca in certain situations, but he can be a bit of a coward. If something gets, the going gets tough, he bails.
Right. Yeah.
He bailed in Suikoden 1 when the Grangmeister was under assault. He
Mhm.
bailed in Suikoden 2 when Luriel was under assault, and then he bailed in Suikoden 3 when Luke's plan was going off. So
Yeah.
so we can't really count on him being this guy that's going to be a factor here. He could just
Mhm.
bail at any point in time.
Right.
But we do have Leon Silverberg. Now
Mhm.
that's huge.
Mhm.
That's really, really big. We have Leon Silverberg and we have Joey.
Joey. Yeah.
So Joey has the Black Sword rune, and that makes a pretty big difference, but it is only half a rune, so it has half the power. The same issue that Lanknot has.
Right.
Her half rune doesn't compete with full runes. That's
Mhm.
why she wasn't able to stop Luke from going and doing what he was doing.
Right.
But it's still a half of a very powerful rune. So
Mhm.
we still have Joey. He's also brilliant. He's a great fighter. So
Okay.
he can definitely put something towards this as well. But Leon is the big one. Leon, if he decides that he's going to stay loyal to Luca during this because his plan failed, let's put it this way. Leon was staking on the ambush working.
Right.
Now, if it failed, I don't think that he would be like, let's run away. I think he would find a way to trick Luca and say, hey, they just found a way to outmaneuver us.
Just a way to survive, like
Yeah,
Lucas like onslaught towards him if that was the case.
that's right. So I think Leon would still be there.
Okay.
And like Leon said, people like him are forgotten in times of peace. So he would
Mhm.
definitely want to be on the side of someone that's causing war, which is definitely Luca.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we do have a great strategist in Leon Silverberg. And then we have Cage. Now,
Mhm.
while
Right.
Cage doesn't really get involved in too many heavy-handed fights himself, he is very good at intel, and
Yeah.
his people can perform assassinations. Now, there's two ninjas that come to mind that are under his contract, and that's Watari and Ayame. Now, these
All
two,
right.
yeah,
Yeah.
these two
Okay.
are actually very loyal to Highland. Well, especially Watari.
Mhm.
Ayame is loyal to Watari, so you would have these specific three ninjas that could perform assassinations, and there's other people
Mhm.
in the Darkwind Cage clan as well. So these guys are definitely going to be something that Luca could use to his advantage. He could
Mhm.
assassinate people. He could get intel on people.
Yeah.
So these guys could really, really help when it comes to maneuvering the military across the borders.
Okay. Okay. Interesting. Yeah. I forgot about the other ninjas from they were from 3, right?
Yeah, they're from Suikoden
Okay.
3.
Okay. But you can
Now, the
yeah.
other thing that we have to talk about for Highland is the Beast Rune.
Mhm.
Now, we saw what happened in Muse, that Luca was able to sacrifice a lot of people in Muse, and then he was able to summon those golden wolves,
Right.
and they were actually very strong, right? It took our heroes to be able to take some of them down, and it was still very difficult for them. So
Mhm.
regular soldiers were getting torn apart by these things. So Luca would now actually have the ability to sacrifice townspeople in the Dunnan Republic for this ability.
To power up this rune.
Exactly. So
Okay.
he could have the full power of the Beast Rune awoken, and that is definitely what would gain Harmonia's attention. Sorry.
Mhm.
So I think that would be a huge step forward for the Highland army at that point.
Yeah. Yeah, no, for sure. And then okay, well, yeah, we'll delve into it once we actually get into the battle part. But yeah, that sounds I mean, is there anybody else roster-wise when we're thinking about it?
Unfortunately, no, because Solon G was already executed.
Right.
General Kaiba and his son Claus had already joined the other side,
And then
so
they would have been
executed for sure.
executed. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So then that's so we have the Kingdom of Highland right there, pretty much with the roster and a little bit of the runes. There's a little bit more discussion on the runes, but we'll
We
delve
do
into
have
that.
troop numbers, a bit of troop numbers at least.
Okay. What's the troop
Uh,
numbers?
we have a ballpark of the Highland Army.
Mhm.
Now, Shu did state that they had 30,000 soldiers, which could amount to one of the companies of Highland.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
there was 4 companies of Highland during that battle.
Okay.
So we're assuming that they have around 100,000 soldiers.
Okay. All right.
So
So
that is pretty good for Highland. Now, when it comes to Harmonia, it's a bit of a guessing game, but they did state that Harmonia heavily outnumbered Grassland, Zexen, Tinto, and the Camaro Knights.
yeah, you're thinking double digit millions in the sense.
It could be. It could
Yeah.
very well be a few million soldiers in
Yeah.
Harmonia's kingdom. It could be.
Okay. Okay. All right. So now so with Harmonia, like what's the roster there? What are we looking at from there with the roster?
Okay, so with Harmonia, we definitely have Sasarai, who
Mm-hmm.
is the lead bishop that we always see. But
Mm-hmm.
there's definitely other bishops there too who will have maybe not the same amount of power as him, because Sasarai is very powerful himself, especially with that true Earth rune.
Right.
But there is other bishops that would have very high knowledge in magic, and they would be there too. I think there's 8 of them. I can't really get an exact number. You see them in a cinematic when Luke is being awarded the title of bishop in Suikoden 3.
Mm-hmm.
But you also have Dios, who is a well-known general in the Harmonian army. He's
Okay.
not much of a fighter. He's much more of a tactician. So we do have him. He's important.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not sure if Albert Silverberg would be there or not, because I know he was training in Crystal Valley to help become a strategist for Harmonia. Now, I'm not sure if he would be there at that time or not, because Leon Silverberg is his grandfather. So
Right.
it's 15 years between the two wars. So I'll put him there as like a maybe.
Maybe. Yeah. That's a possibility if they
Yeah.
Harmonia wants to use kids in
Yeah.
the war sort of thing.
Well, Albert, I think he was 30 by the time that war
Okay.
happened. So he'd be like 15, maybe 16 years old. But he was a brilliant student, just
Mm.
like Leon. So
Right.
he
Okay.
could be in there. We don't know. Other than that, we have the Howling Voice Guild. Now, this is huge because that
Mm.
is the guys that use guns. So that just shows you Harmonia also has technology on their side.
Right.
So they have people like Clive and Stella, Zaj, Kathiri. They have Nash.
Mm-hmm.
So Nash is actually a very, very talented spy, as well as a very talented fighter that was training underneath the Howling Voice Guild. So these guys are all what would be opposing Cage and Watari and Ayame.
Right.
So we would actually have this really interesting battle of the shadows.
That would be cool, actually.
Yeah, like you know how have you ever played the Elder Scrolls series?
No, I haven't. I haven't actually, unfortunately.
Okay, for viewers who have, it's basically like the Blades versus the Thalmor, and in that that shadow battle that it was a war behind the scenes that nobody knew about.
Okay.
That's what this would be. It would have the people with the guns fighting the people with the ability to disappear and slit your throat.
Yeah.
So
Stealth.
it would be very much interesting. They also have the Southern Defense Force, which means Duke and
Mhm.
Jetto's teams. They're all going to be there.
Okay. Okay.
If they need them to be.
Right. Huh.
They're unlikely to get involved because they're guarding the border with Grassland, but it's just to keep in mind that they would be there, and they are, as we saw in Suikoden 3, a very, very strong force.
Right. Right. Okay.
The other things we have to mention is just like kind of a noteworthy thing is Peshmerga always opposes Uber.
Yes. Exactly.
Always. So if Peshmerga saw that Uber was on the Highland side, I could definitely see him joining Harmonia just to get at Uber.
Yeah, that makes sense. I almost forgot Persmerga because he wasn't shown on 3. Like when we were playing Suikoden 3. You don't see him, right?
No.
Just to jog my memory. Okay, yeah, you don't see him, but that is a possible case where if Uber is around, then of course Persmerga would be there.
We also kind of have to mention Necklord here because the ambush with Luca Blight happens before the Tinto Republic gets involved in this Dunham War.
Okay.
So Tinto, as we saw, was definitely getting crushed by Necklord.
Right.
And he wanted to make the Tinto Republic his own little zombie kingdom. Now we have to decide, is Necklord going to join Luca's side or fight him?
Yeah. And then you're thinking about that, you're thinking about shoot, now the name's escaping me. What's the rune that
the Night Rune?
Night Rune, yeah. If he has it, taking out Sierra sort of thing.
Sierra definitely wouldn't have been able to take him on one-on-one, and neither would Khan. Khan would get slapped around too.
Right. So you would have to think about that if that's a possibility, or if Necklord wants to join Harmonia or whatever. Yeah, a possibility. It's Necklord is a random factor in this point where like Peshmerga in a sense.
Yeah, well, Necklord, at least we have a little bit of history there. He did join Windy, who was opposed to Harmonia. She hated Harmonia for destroying her village. So he could be against Harmonia.
It's a possibility. Right, okay.
And it is important to know that the Tinto Republic at the time had about 5,000 to 7,000 soldiers, so that's 5,000 to 7,000 zombies.
Yeah.
So they
Well,
could be
they could
there to
be,
help.
and it could be more because it's zombies, and then you just, slain soldiers. Neclo raise them up, and then boom, you have more soldiers.
That's right. So we don't know what his intentions were. We're just gonna mention them there.
Yeah.
And also, when it comes down to Harmonia, there is two major runes we have to talk about. One being the True Earth rune. It's a very powerful elemental rune. And then we have the Circle rune, which is the rune of balance, which Hikusak has. And of course, Hikusak is on Harmonia's side. If they did need him, he would definitely come to that battlefront. So the Circle rune, we don't know a lot about it. Unfortunately, all we know is it's the rune of balance and it's the rune of order and stagnation. So we don't know its exact powers. We don't know if it can take on the beast rune or not. Now, a lot of people have a misconception that the beast rune was given to Highland, because a lot of people are like, oh, why would they give away such a good rune if it was really that good? They didn't. The beast rune left on its own. The beast rune left Holy Harmonia on its own will and went to Highland, which I attribute to because it wanted to be with Luca Blight because it saw how evil he was.
Yeah, how hungry he was just to cause chaos and such. And the thing that you do need to think about when it comes to these true runes is that they don't choose you. They they don't say, or you don't choose them. They choose whoever or wherever they want to go. So you got to think about that too. When it comes to true runes. So with the beast rune, like Luke was saying, it chose to stay in Highland because Luca's crazy, and not this Luca talking, but Luca Blight in the game is crazy. So it's I can dig what Luca is doing. So I'm gonna chill out here. But then as you were about to say, I'm pretty sure you were about to say Harmonia kind of made a slide oh yeah, we'll give you the rune, but then again, it's we can't control it. So we'll just, there you go. You can have it. We'll just keep an eye on it.
They claimed that it was a gift. It vanished out of nowhere. And then everyone's like, whoa, what's going on? They're like, oh, it's a gift. And then Harmonia's going, well, what's going on? We just lost another true rune.
Right.
At one point, they had 8, right? And then all of a sudden, they just started to move everywhere on their own in one way or another.
Yeah.
There is some notable losses that I want to talk about with Harmonia.
Okay.
Just so we don't think that they're too overpowered where they can't lose. Now, the big one that we have, of course, is the rebellion that they lost half of the Dunnan Republic. And then Highland ended up becoming its own. Of course, Marius Blight, I think it was his name. He led that and quelled that for them. But there's another one. There's a big loss that nobody seems to be really talking about. And that's when they tried to invade Lorimar. Now, Lorimar is where the Warriors Village is.
Right, okay.
So Clift the Paladin, or the Crusader, as they like to call him sometimes,
who
is the founder of the Warriors Village, with just a small region of Lorimar, defeated the army invading from Grangmanster Palace.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So he was very well renowned, and Harmonia respected him at that point, and they were like, okay, so this guy is really powerful, and so are his soldiers. We're going to back off.
Yeah.
Which eventually led to Rugner forming the Scarlet Moon Empire in a bloodless coup, because Harmonia let that happen, because if they went down to fight him again, they would also have to go through Dunnan, and they would also have to run into the Lorimar region again, and they didn't want to do that. So they ended up just letting the Scarlet Moon Empire become a thing.
Okay.
Now, another one would be, now this one's minor, but in 460, Salsarai retreats after Luke uses his True Wind rune. Now, that's not it's just something notable that they will take off if a True Rune is used, but that was because of what happened with the Flame Champion. So they are a little weary of that kind of stuff, but it's mostly because they just don't want to stick around and then just get blasted again. So they'll back off a little bit, and then
they don't want to just keep pressuring True Rune users in the hopes that not in the hopes, but in case they go nuts or something else happens, and then boom, explosion, and both sides are taken out, sort of thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now this is the big one. This is the big one that allowed me to really start thinking about this matchup. Because when I first heard about this matchup, I shrugged it off. I was just kind of like, really? Like Harmonia would stomp them. But then I thought about it. After the Dunnan Republic was formed, which you see on your far right side, Dunnan Republic, that entire land, that army was able to hold off Harmonia. Harmonia invaded after Highland was defeated to try to retake the land, and Shu beat them.
Okay.
With his tactics, Shu was able to now mind you, defense is easier than attacking, but he was able to defeat them. So if Shu can do it, I think Leon could do it.
Okay, yeah.
So that's definitely notable.
Yeah. Okay. Especially, being a Silverberg and then Shu being a student of the Silverbergs. If Shu was able to do, that makes sense.
And then they would also have Luca as a fighter there too.
Luca being a crazy fighter, yeah.
So you would have a really high amount of military force met with the greatness of Leon Silverberg. So I think that they could fend off attacks as well. Now, whether or not he could take on a full battalion from Harmonia is the real question we have here, which we'll get into soon.
Yeah. Okay. Let me see if there's anything else. I think that's pretty much it when it comes to the roster and like where we're standing at. So let's go ahead and get into the matchup. So like, if you're asking probably any fan, they're saying, okay, like Harmonia would win, and it's kind of like no contest. But let's make some cases here. So like, where do you think Highland would have a chance when it comes to going up against Harmonia?
They would have a chance when it comes to tactics. When Leon gets on the field, he would be able to use a lot of bold tactics that other people would not want to use. He would definitely use them. Okay. Luca is not afraid of anything, and we know how powerful Luca is. He's been ambushed by high amounts of soldiers, and he's defeated them.
Yeah.
Now, a big thing is going to be scare tactics. Now, Harmonian soldiers are still people. People experience fear. They don't want to die. You saw in Suikoden 3, just the name Flame Champion scared the Harmonian soldiers. They didn't want to invade the Christia village because they were scared that Hugo was the actual real Flame Champion. So they didn't want to do it. Now, if they can be afraid of a little boy just off a name, how afraid are they going to be of Luca Blight?
Oh gosh, yeah.
Luca can carve through people.
Yeah, for sure.
So that's one way that they could definitely stand up to them. But the problem comes down to eventually the Harmonian army did attack. They eventually did gain their forces. They did gain the actual courage to go and fight, and of course they stomped grassland after that.
Right.
So that's a bit of an issue, but the Beast Rune comes into effect too. These guys are going to be scared of these giant golden wolves.
Right? Whether it's illusion or not.
Right. So they're going to be able to come after them. The other problem, though, is in Crystal Valley, they do have Sarah at this point, and Sarah is able to conjure illusions and conjure up monsters from other realms, much like Wendy did.
Yeah.
So she can actually give even more forces to the Harmonia side, and she doesn't need runes to do it. She's a natural magician.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. I forgot about that.
Yeah. Another thing we got to get into is the aerial assault from Harmonia. I don't know how we're going to get around this one, Highland fans. I'm sorry, but they have dragons and they have the flying bugs there, the Mantars.
Yeah.
So that one's going to be difficult. I don't know if Highland's going to be able to stop them with other than arrows. Now, we do see in the first Suikoden game that if you use your dragons and then the other opposing army uses bows, that they can shoot the dragons out of the sky. So because these dragons aren't massive, right? They're just they're like drakes.
You know what? Now you're telling me about like dragons and the bugs. I do remember. I just remember just because you brought it up. Like there was Griffiths in Suikoden 2, and then like if they were able to, summon like the unicorn. I forget the unicorn's name. Siegfried, you have like the two squid, like not squids, but like kraken like monsters with the stars. I mean, like if that was somehow formed into getting with Highland, I mean, maybe.
Now I could see them taming like a bunch of griffins. If that's what you're getting at. I think that's something that's true. I mean, if they could tame some griffins, then they could match that aerial assault. Then we come down to the problem, though, of Harmonia's actual size of their military.
That's true. That's true. Yeah.
So when we have that 100,000 soldiers from Highland, and then you have probably millions in Harmonia, that's when it becomes an issue.
Yeah.
So the only chance that Highland has here is if they wait. And what I mean by that is if Luca was somehow smart enough
or patient enough.
This is very unlikely.
Yeah.
Even though I pick him as my name, it's very unlikely. If he's smart enough, he'll wait and try to gain his forces and then take the opportunity when Luke makes his move. Now, when Luke makes his move into grassland to start stealing the true runes and causing Harmonia to invade grassland.
Breaking their attention.
Once he does that, then Luca could start making his move. In the meantime, he could actually take, say, the Tauran Republic out and gain even more power. And then by the time that happened, the grassland thing would be over and, they would be diminished a little more. And now Luca would have the power to stand against them because he has Tauran under his control now.
Yeah. If Luca was able to find Tyr with Soul Eater, and if I'm just looking at like what we're looking at in the map, and another thing that we were gonna bring up when it comes to the Rune of Beginning, because if we're saying that Luca took out the entire rebel army, then for some form of fashion, somebody from or either Joey or somebody in Highland will have the Bright Shield rune to complete the Rune of Beginning, and that gives you a possible chance with Harmonia having 2 true runes. But we don't know what Circle does. We know what True Earth does in a sense, but Circle is still some sort of a mystery. And then you have the randomness of what the Beast rune can do, and how maybe it'll actually go against Highland if it becomes too crazy. So there's a lot of stuff to think about when it comes to like the true runes, especially.
The problem with the Rune of Beginning is it needs to have the Bright Shield rune at its maximum potential, which it needs all 108 Stars of Destiny to do.
Okay.
Now, at this point, the 108 stars are dead.
Yes.
So even if someone does get the Bright Shield runes, there's no guarantee that it will form the Rune of Beginning. It probably won't.
But you'll have some form of it. You have some form of it, though.
If it did manage to form, then we could have a real discussion about how Highland could actually beat Harmonia, because this rune claims to govern war.
Yeah.
So if it governs war like it claims, it judges war like it claims, then it definitely could end up defeating Harmonia.
Yeah.
But that's a big if. That's a huge
big if. I mean, this whole scenario is a big what if, but if we're talking about it, if we're getting down to it, you would need 108 to gather before the ambush, which it didn't though. But if it did, you have your possible chance there if they had the Rune of Beginning.
Correct. Yeah. If they had the Rune of Beginning, that changes a lot of things. But based on what we see, even though we've tried to stack the deck in Highland's favor, I still feel like Harmonia runs them over eventually.
Yeah, I would have to agree with that. Luca can be a big, gigantic tank, which we do see with the ambush. Like, it's just him against three platoons of soldiers, like with the parties, and still was able to kind of just stagger, maybe take an arrow and then still rage on. But yeah,
there's a huge difference between 30,000 soldiers and 3 million.
Sure. But
I think they would cut him down.
Yeah, but I kind of think of it as then again it kind of goes back to if Harmonia has their own 108 stars. If it's just regular soldier people, yeah, maybe Luca will do a little bit more, do more damage. But if it's 108 stars against Luca, then yeah.
Well, it's also important to note is that when you are raising your army in the Dunnan Republic, a lot of them are volunteers and stuff, right? They're farmers,
Right.
they're this and that. Harmonia is trained soldiers, right? They're a
Yeah.
battalion. They're like gone through rigorous training. This
Mhm.
is not no normal soldiers. Like as we saw in the Grassland War, just the regular soldiers were tough. Like when you got in the actual battle,
That's right.
they
Yeah.
steamrolled you. It wasn't even
Yeah.
like,
It was
you know,
almost one-shotting.
you had, Bosba and you had Chief Lucia in there fighting against these people,
Mhm.
these Harmonian soldiers, and they were getting their ass kicked.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
So
true.
Harmonian soldiers are very strong, and they have a lot of training. They have really good armor. They have good technique. They have all the technology to back them.
Mhm.
I honestly, even though I've tried to stack the deck in Highland's favor as much as possible, when it comes down to it, military versus military, I just feel like it's going to be a bad day for
Yeah.
Highland.
Yeah. 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 I would have to agree with you. Like you have like the knowledge down, and I'm just from what I'm listening and hearing, like, yeah, even with just two true runes, you just have to think about how big size Harmonia is, the battalion numbers, and you with the unknown factor of maybe 108 stars, but still, everybody, whether they were afraid or not, they were still a beast. If they were like a Harmonian soldier, so
True, yeah, that's very true. So that, I mean, it would be a fun war. It would definitely be fun
it definitely would.
to go through. I mean, Luca would. I think Luca could carve a nice chunk out before he
Yeah,
finally lost.
that's what I'm thinking. He does a pretty good chunk of damage before like he gets taken out.
Yeah, I think he could conquer some land. I think he could
Mhm.
do a lot of damage with that beast rune. Unfortunately, I think Luca himself would do more damage to Highland than Harmonia would because he'd be
Hmm.
sacrificing so many people,
Yeah.
and then he would lose the power of the people. Right? They don't want to be sacrificed, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So they would. I think there'd be rebellions going on inside. I
Yeah.
think there'd be a lot of problems for Luca. To be honest, it might even be better if Joey had actually taken power and won the war rather than
Ear
Luca.
Earlier, and then you have Leon, like, tagging along, like not only tagging along, but like fully supporting Joey in that sense, rather than like maybe Leon was maybe hesitant to follow Luca in this example, possibly.
Yeah, and there is something that we could talk about is say, Joey wins the war by
Hmm.
whatever reason in the what if. Then I think we got a better conversation because I think they could fool Harmonia into still believing that they are loyal to them and that they're not going to go
Hmm.
against them. And then eventually slowly make their move, take out Tinto, and then,
Yeah.
eventually move south while Harmonia is busy with other things, or even possibly make allies.
Yeah.
That could go down a better route, but at the same point, again, you run into that same issue. Harmonia's got the aerial assault. They actually have a very good navy.
Oh.
Even the island nations are worried about them.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, because Kuluk was actually looking to get that rune of punishment
Punishment. Right.
to trade to Harmonia for military backup,
Oh, interesting.
to be
Okay.
able to
Okay.
take on people like Scarlet Moon, to be able to take on Gaian, to
Yeah.
be able to take out the Queen of Mufalena, that kind of stuff. So when it comes down to that, they can attack from all sides. They can hit you from
Mhm.
sea, they can hit you from land, they can hit you from air.
Yeah.
So in my final decision here, I think in no matter what situation you go with, Highland loses this war.
Yeah. I would have to agree, even though I may not be like as informed of everything that's going on, but like Luca just made like a great point, a lot of points, that it's too big of a kingdom, the fighters are too great. um yeah, they have land and air. uh they, yeah, it doesn't look, not to say it is no contest, but it's a pretty, it doesn't look good for Highland in that
It's not as
sense.
one-sided as I originally thought, though.
Yeah, I'm not thinking it's like 10 out of 10 battles. Harmonia wins. It's like maybe nine,
Put it
nine out
this
of
way,
10, maybe eight.
I think they would do better than Grassland did.
Oh yeah, yeah,
I think they do a lot better than Grassland did. I don't
yeah,
think they get run over the way the Grassland and Zexan Federation did.
yeah.
I definitely think, sorry, Zexan Confederacy. Uh, I don't think that they would go down like punks. I think this would actually be one of the hardest fights Harmonia ever had.
Yeah.
But in the end, I still think it would be too hard for Highland to invade an army that's so much bigger. They could defend,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
Luca's craziness would end up being what kind of screws them.
Yeah. For sure.
So,
For sure. Yeah.
yeah, in the end, I think it doesn't really matter. Eventually, Harmonia is going to do what it does best, and that's win wars.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Now, a lot of people
That's
might be
pretty compelling.
thinking, like, how is Dun and Republic still a thing, though? If Harmonia could do that so easily, it's exactly this. It's defending is a lot easier than attacking, and if they tried to commit too many soldiers to one area at once, then other places could start attacking.
Yeah, they lose the fortifying, whatever they're going to be sending soldiers out to, and then whoever is nearby can just go ahead and start attacking in that sense.
Well, the funny thing is people think that during that grassland fight, that's the only thing Harmonia was doing. That's not true. They were conquering other lands. Like I said, they conquered 3 different lands while off camera, what we didn't see.
While Suikoden 3 was happening.
Yeah, like while Suikoden 3 was happening, while we were watching Harmonia attack us, they were also attacking other lands and winning.
Wow.
So that's why we're
nuts.
so disappointed that Suikoden 6 did not come out, because this was such a huge thing we were building towards. It was like, we needed this big climactic ending. How were they going to stop Harmonia? It's such a big kingdom. But yeah, in my closing statement there, yeah, I'm picking Harmonia for the win.
Yeah.
And eventually it wouldn't be embarrassing like it was for Grassland, but it would end badly for them.
I would have to agree. I would have to agree with you, Luca. Yeah, I totally agree. So that's it for the topic at hand. Another thing that we were going to do for this episode is read off some of the comments that you guys had when it comes to not only this topic, but just like seeing Suikoden in general. So I believe, let's see, I have one comment coming from the Suikoden Club Facebook group, and the question from Gol Whelan is English translation of Woven Web of a Century, which is the PSP game that never came over here. It's kind of like the second Turkey's game in a sense, because it's delving into realms rather than like the true runes itself. So like, yeah, he's asking when are we gonna get an English translation? And if you're asking me, it doesn't look likely on an official standpoint, like say from Konami. But if there are people out there who want to make a translation translation patch, I know that Emu Paradise or MU Paradise before had an English version of the game, but now that Emu Paradise is gone, so is that version of the game. And I've been looking around. Believe me, I've been looking around to find a version of that game that's English translation, just so I can play it. If you have the name Suikoden, of course I'm gonna give it a try. So like, yeah, doesn't look likely on my end. But Luca, do you agree with that?
Yeah, I don't think it's very likely that we'll get an official release from it. Now, there is some pretty good translators out there that have brought over some games. I mean, we've had some fan translations of Dragon Ball games and Final Fantasy games. Yeah. So I mean, it's possible that we could get that, but I don't think it's very likely we'll get an official release. It's unfortunate because I would love to play it, but unfortunately, when it comes to an RPG like that, you got to be able to read it. Yeah, and I can't speak Japanese, unfortunately.
Unfortunately, I can't either, and I would love to, and maybe that's somewhere down the line. I don't know, but if you're a translator that is out there and you love Suikoden, yeah, any way possible, just get together with either a bunch of translators or I don't know, GoFundMe. I don't know, just something just to get that patch going, and then just put it into like an emulator version of the game. And I love to experience that in any form or fashion. Because I mean, when it comes to Suikoden, the character designs are the appeal. When it comes to like just 108 characters, and then you see like, oh, that one looks cool, maybe that one looks all right, or what's the story with that one? So yeah, there's that. So that was from Gol Whelan from the Suikoden Club Facebook page, Facebook group page. And then we have another one I got from Twitter. Let me see.
Sounds like a good Facebook page.
Yeah, sounds like a pretty awesome Facebook page. I've been pretty active on there, just sharing not knowledge, but like just sharing the love of Suikoden. Suikoden Revival. Let me see if I can screen share this. I just want to show you guys, just so I'm not lying that we're not getting responses or anything. Let me see. Okay, page. We go here, screen share application. Okay, right there. So on Twitter, right there, Suikoden Revival says one has the power of several true runes and is a giant continental superpower. The other lost to a teenage boy and his band of flying squirrels. I'll go with Harmonia. Suikoden Revival, you do.
Oh man, he just bodied that in one sentence.
Yeah. He's not wrong. He's not wrong. So that's Suikoden Revival. Yeah, that is true. When you think you're talking about the canon games, if you had a team of like one of the party battles of like going up against Luca with like a party of the squirrels, I'd be, oh, that is so funny. I would love to. If I can do that, I'll try to do that. Once I get to my LP.
I watched someone beat him with Meg and Gadget. So
oh really?
I'm just saying, man.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, that's fun. That's fun stuff.
Oh, dude, that's awesome.
But yeah, I've been sent some stuff from a few different Suikoden Facebook pages, and Suikoden Club seems to have some pretty good people on there.
Yeah.
I actually saved a post that someone sent me from there.
Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah, and I actually pinned it. It was actually a pretty good discussion about Mr. Luca Blight, but yeah, it seems to be a good Facebook group.
Yeah. Suikoden Club, and I found another one called just called Suikoden, but I've yet to delve into the community there. But Suikoden Club on Facebook is a pretty like active and great page. Everybody just loves to engage and just talk anything Suikoden. So yeah, so thank you guys just for those comments and posts. And if you guys have like as we do more of these episodes, if you guys have anything like commenting about like Suikoden in general or just about the topic that we'll talk about, please feel free to like just post on like the post that we put on, or just tweet at us, or whatever, and then we'll definitely read them off and give you like a little bit of a shout out, because this what this pretty much the show is about, is just not only just delving into like the topics and stuff that we love about Suikoden, but like just engaging with the fans that love the the game and the series itself. So yeah, I think that's pretty much it for the show. Thank you, Luca, for just like delving into the history and going about like like the tale of the tape of Highland versus Harmonia and all that stuff. I appreciate you taking the time to just do the work there, and I'm just here listening and like, wow, yeah, I agree with you, or like, yeah, what about this sort of thing. So I appreciate you just doing the work there. So thank you, Luca.
No problem. Thank you.
Yeah. So Luca, where can people find you? They want to get to know you more about Luca Blight and your channel and stuff that you do.
Well, Suikoden fans, you can find me on Twitter, and then you can also find me on my Facebook page, King Luca Blight. Because Luke is the true king of Highland, and not a Garrus. He's a wimp. And then you can also find me on YouTube here, of course. I'll be in the description. Yeah. So come over, have some fun. We'll talk Suikoden, and make sure to join in the next podcast.
Okay. Yeah, for sure. So, yeah, that's it for us right here. And you can find me at Nerd in the Bay, YouTube channel, Nerd in the Bay, Facebook, Twitter, also at Marco Polo 177. That's my personal Twitter. And I'm just saying random stuff. So, you go ahead and follow me there. And then, let me see anything else. I think that's pretty much it. Facebook, Twitter, YouTube channel. And yeah, I think that's it. So yeah, guys, thank you very much for hanging out and listening and watching wherever you're doing, whether you're watching the live stream or you're listening to the podcast on Anchor. Thank you guys for just checking us out, delving, like engaging with us. We'll see you next time for the next episode of the Stars of Destiny podcast. We don't know when that's going to be a hit. We don't know how active we want to be, but we do want to be just engaging into like hot button topics or just whatever news that is out there. So whatever the next thing is, we'll announce it on all social media, and then we'll go ahead and do the podcast from there. So thank you guys for watching or listening, and we'll see you guys next time for the next podcast. All right. Peace, guys.